Hey, I'm Sophia. Before we start, go grab a snack and get comfortable for a bit. These stories take their time, and they are told the way I'd tell a friend late at night. I really hope you enjoy them. This story has one update on it and my own opinion at the end. Comment and tell me if you agree. Let's begin. I caught my brother trying to sabotage my promotion. I revealed his secrets to the boss instead. The first thing I noticed was the way my mouse moved on its own, a tiny twitch across my monitor, and then the sound, my keyboard, being typed on, not by me. I froze in the doorway of the conference room with my coffee still burning my fingers through the paper cup, watching my brother's shoulders tense as he leaned over my laptop, like he belonged there. The room was half dark, projector screen still down from the earlier meeting, the air stale with leftover catering and dry marker smell. He didn't hear me at first because the building's AC was humming and he had one earbud in. I could see my promotion presentation open on the screen, my slides, my notes, except the title had been changed. Not a typo. Not an accident. The whole first slide now read, Supply Chain Process Review, Draft. Like some bland internal doc instead of the pitch deck I'd been building for weeks. My brother clicked into my speaker notes and started deleting whole paragraphs with that quick, casual speed of someone who's done it before. My heart pounded so hard, I could feel it in my teeth. "Samir," I said, and my voice came out low and shaky. He jolted, whipped around, and the split-second panic on his face told me everything. He recovered fast, though, he always does. He yanked his earbud out and gave me that familiar half-smile like I'd caught him stealing fries, not gutting my career. "Relax," he said, and his hand stayed on my trackpad, possessive. I was helping. "Your deck was a lot." He said a lot the way people say dramatic. He stood up slowly, blocking the screen with his body like I wouldn't notice what he'd done if he took up enough space. I stepped closer, and the coffee sloshed over my hand, hot and sticky, and I didn't even flinch. My eyes locked on the open email tab behind the slides. My inbox already scrolled to a message draft addressed to Marian Hart, my director. Subject line, Concerns re. Layla's readiness for lead role. My stomach dropped, so hard it felt like the floor moved. Samir followed my gaze, then lunged to click it closed. Too late. "That's not what it looks like," he blurted, and I laughed once, short and ugly, because that line is never said by someone innocent. I reached past him, grabbed my laptop, and pulled it toward me. He tried to grab it back. Our fingers collided, clumsy, tense. "Get your hands off my computer," I said, louder now, and the sound bounced off the conference room walls. He finally stepped back, palms up, offended, like I was the one escalating. "You're really going to make a scene?" he said, and in that moment I realized he'd been counting on one thing, my embarrassment. It was the week before the promotion decision, and I'd been living in a constant state of low-grade nausea for a month. I'm 29F, I work in operations at a mid-sized logistics company, and I've spent the last 4 years clawing my way from the girl who takes notes to the person they call when things are on fire. The lead role on my team had been open since January. It was a real step up, more money, more say, more visibility. Marianne, our director, had pulled me aside after a brutal quarter and said, "You've been acting like a lead already." I went home that night and cried in my car in the parking lot because I didn't want to jinx it by feeling happy too soon. That's how my brain works. Happiness feels like a dare. Samir is my older brother by 3 years. We also, for reasons I sometimes regret, work at the same company. Not the same team, thank God, but close enough that everyone knows we're siblings. When I got hired, my parents acted like it was some sweet family legacy moment. Samir acted supportive in public and weirdly competitive in private. He's charming, funny, the kind of man who can talk his way out of consequences with a grin. Growing up, he was the smart one, the leader, the one my dad would brag about. I was organized, helpful, sensitive. Those labels stick in your skin if you hear them long enough. When the lead role opened, Samir suddenly started dropping comments like, "You sure you want that stress? And leadership isn't just being good at spreadsheets, Layla." He said my name like it was always a warning. The worst part was he'd say it with a smile, so if I reacted, I'd look dramatic. I told myself I was imagining things. I told myself he was just being a brother. Meanwhile, he kept floating around my workspace more than usual. Stopping by with coffee, asking who I was meeting with, offering feedback I didn't ask for. At first I thought it was awkward support. Then I started noticing the pattern. Every time I had something important coming up, he'd appear like a shadow. 2 weeks before the decision, Marian asked me to present a process improvement plan to the senior leadership group, a kind of final proof that I could handle the lead role. It wasn't officially a competition, but it might as well have been. There were 2 internal candidates, me and a guy named Ethan from another branch, solid but safe. Samir wasn't a candidate. That mattered because this wasn't about him wanting the job. This was about him not wanting me to have it. Which is somehow worse, because you can't reason with someone whose goal is simply to keep you smaller. I worked like a maniac. I built the deck, updated it nightly, rehearsed in my living room with my cat staring at me like I'd lost it. Noah, my boyfriend, would sit on the couch and listen to me practice, occasionally saying, "Slow down," or, "That point is strong, don't bury it." I made every slide clean and simple. I wrote speaker notes in case nerves made my brain blank. I set myself backups. I password-locked the final version. I was careful because I know my anxiety, and my anxiety is basically a full-time security consultant. Then weird things started happening. My calendar invites would disappear and reappear. My meeting room bookings would get canceled with no explanation. Once, my slide deck link in Teams suddenly pointed to an older version missing key data. I assumed it was a syncing issue. Then a coworker mentioned casually, "Hey, did you tell Marianne you weren't comfortable leading the vendor negotiations?" "No," I said. "Why would I say that?" She shrugged. "Someone told her you said you wanted to focus on support work." Support work. The words landed like a slap. It was exactly the kind of thing that would quietly disqualify me in a leadership conversation. Not incompetent, just not ambitious. Not unskilled, just not assertive. That night, I went into the audit logs for our shared drives, something I normally wouldn't do because I'm not trying to be paranoid, but I needed to know if I was losing my mind. Our system logs who accesses what. I searched for my deck folder. My stomach went cold when I saw Samir's username pop up multiple times, late at night, on days he told me he was out with friends. He'd accessed my folder. Not once. Not accidentally. Over and over. I didn't confront him right away because confrontation in my family has always meant getting told I'm overreacting. Instead, I set a trap. I created a decoy version of my deck labeled final_V7 and left it in the shared drive, with a line hidden in the speaker notes on slide 3. If you are reading this, you are not supposed to be here. I saved my real final deck in a different location with restricted permissions. Then I waited. 2 days later, I walked into that conference room early to test the projector and caught Samir on my laptop. Editing. Deleting. Drafting an email to my boss about my readiness. Standing there, watching him try to pretend it was help, I felt something in me shift. Not rage exactly. More like clarity. This wasn't sibling teasing. This wasn't concern. This was sabotage. Deliberate. Calculated. Done with the assumption that I'd swallow it like I always had. Step away from the laptop, I said, and my voice was steadier now, like my body was taking over, because my mind was too stunned to steer. Samir scoffed. "You're spiraling." He nodded toward my shaking coffee cup like it proved his point. "See? This is what I'm talking about. You get emotional. Leadership is." "Stop," I cut in. I clicked into the draft email again and read it right there while he watched me. He'd written that I'd been struggling with pressure, that I often needed reassurance, that I was excellent support but not strategic. It was so smooth it made my skin crawl. It sounded like someone trying to be kind while quietly destroying you. My hands were trembling as I pulled out my phone and took photos of the screen. Samir's eyes widened. "Are you serious?" he snapped, stepping forward. "Don't," I said, backing up, keeping the laptop between us like a shield. "Don't touch me. Don't touch my stuff." He exhaled hard, then switched tactics instantly. "Layla, he said, softer like a therapist. I was trying to protect you. If you get promoted and you fail, it'll crush you. Everyone will talk. I'm your brother. I'm looking out for you. There it was. The family script. Hurt me, then call it love. I stared at him and felt this quiet disgust settle in. You're not protecting me, I said. You're protecting your ego. His face hardened. You think you're better than me now. I think you're doing something wrong, I said. And I'm done pretending it's normal. I left the room with my laptop under my arm and my heart pounding so hard I felt nauseous. I went straight to my desk, closed my eyes for 5 seconds, and then opened a new email. To Marianne Hart. Subject: Urgent. Access to my files plus false concerns. My fingers hovered. This was the point of no return. Reporting my brother wasn't just a work problem. It was a family earthquake. I could already hear my mom crying, my dad saying, "How could you do this to your brother?" Samir telling everyone I was vindictive. The old me would have minimized it and tried to handle it quietly. The new me, apparently born in that conference room, didn't want quiet. Quiet is how people like Samir keep winning. I didn't send the email yet. I did one more thing first. I opened the compliance portal, our anonymous reporting system for misconduct. I attached screenshots of the audit logs. I attached the photo of the draft email. I wrote a simple timeline, dates, times, what I observed. I kept it clinical because I knew if I sounded emotional, people like Samir would use it against me. Then I hit submit. After that, I booked a 15-minute meeting with Marianne for the next morning. I labeled it quick check-in. Then I sat at my desk pretending to work while my whole body buzzed like I'd swallowed electricity. Samir texted me an hour later. We need to talk. Don't do anything stupid. My hands went cold again. The audacity of calling my response stupid after a sabotage made my vision blur with anger. I didn't reply. That night, I barely slept. I kept imagining Marianne reading my report and thinking I was the problem. I kept imagining Samir walking into her office first and selling his version. I kept imagining my family's faces when they found out I'd ruined my brother. By morning, my stomach felt like it was full of rocks. Marianne's office smelled like citrus cleaner and expensive coffee. She shut the door behind me, which already felt like a sign something was happening. I sat down with my hands folded in my lap, so she wouldn't see them shaking. Marianne looked at me for a long moment and said, "Before you say anything, I want you to know I got a compliance alert last night." My heart thudded. Okay, I managed. She slid a printed sheet across her desk. It was one of my screenshots. Samir's username, timestamp, file access. She didn't look angry. She looked tired. "Layla," she said carefully, "is there anything I should know about your brother's involvement with your materials?" The room went very quiet. I could hear someone's muffled laugh in the hallway, normal office life, continuing while mine tilted. I took a breath. "Yes," I said. He accessed my deck repeatedly. He edited a version. And he drafted an email to you about my readiness from my computer. Marianne's eyes sharpened. "Do you have proof of the draft email?" I nodded and slid my phone across with a photo. She stared at it, jaw tight. Then she said, "Has he ever done anything like this before?" I hesitated for half a second, then told the truth. "I don't know," I said. "But I noticed cancellations and rumors that sounded like me. And now I know why." Marianne leaned back, exhaled slowly, and said, "Thank you for bringing this to me directly. I'm going to handle it." My throat burned. "Am I in trouble?" I asked, hating that I even had to. Marianne's expression softened, just slightly. "For what? Protecting your work?" "No." Then her face hardened again. "But I need you to understand something. This is serious." He crossed multiple lines. I nodded, and it felt like my whole body finally exhaled for the first time in days. And this is where I'm going to pause the story midway like you asked, because what happens next is the part where everything blows up. Samir is the kind of person who thinks charisma is a substitute for integrity. He's not stupid. He's actually smart enough to be dangerous, because he understands how to plant doubt without leaving fingerprints. He didn't call me incompetent. He framed me as not ready, which is exactly how you sabotage a woman at work without sounding misogynistic. And the fact that he used, "I'm protecting you," as a cover makes my skin crawl, because that's emotional manipulation dressed as brotherly love. My parents helped create this monster by rewarding him for being the loudest person in the room and punishing me for reacting. I can already predict their script. They'll focus on the fact that I reported him, not the fact that he tried to derail my career. Marianne, so far, seems like the only adult in the situation. She didn't immediately accuse me of drama, which honestly says a lot about how often she's probably dealt with subtle sabotage in corporate spaces. As for me, I'm proud I finally documented everything instead of arguing feelings. But I'm also painfully aware that doing the right thing doesn't protect you from fallout. It just means the fallout is more honest. I hate that this is happening with my brother. I hate that I still feel guilt even though he's the one who typed that email. And I hate most of all that he assumed I'd stay quiet. He counted on my fear of family conflict more than my desire for fairness. That's not love. That's a leash. Update. So, after that meeting with Marianne, I walked back to my desk feeling like my legs were made of foam. I kept expecting someone to stop me in the hallway and say, "We need to talk," like in movies. But the office was normal, people arguing about printer paper, someone microwaving fish in the kitchen like an enemy of humanity, Slack notifications popping up. I sat down, opened a spreadsheet, and stared at it without reading a single number. About an hour later, Samir appeared at my desk. He didn't storm up. He glided up with a smile like we were going to lunch. That's his whole thing. Make it look casual so you feel insane for treating it seriously. He leaned against the edge of my cubicle wall and said softly, "Did you really go to Marianne?" My mouth went dry. "Step away from my desk," I said, just as soft. He didn't move. He just smiled wider, and that smile felt like a threat. "Layla," he said, "you're making a huge mistake." I could feel coworkers nearby, pretending not to listen. I kept my eyes on my screen because if I looked at him, I'd shake. "I already told you," I said, "don't do this here." Samir's voice dropped. "You don't understand what you just did. This is going to come back on you." Something in me snapped into calm. "If you think what you did is defensible," I said, "then you shouldn't be worried." His smile slipped for the first time. He leaned closer and hissed, "You're going to destroy our family over a job." I finally looked at him. "You tried to destroy my job," I said. "I'm just refusing to cover it up." He stared at me like he wanted to grab my laptop and smash it. Then he straightened, smoothed his shirt like he was resetting his mask, and said loudly, "Okay, I was just checking in." Then he walked away, leaving me with my heart hammering and my hands cold. 2 hours later, Marianne emailed both of us separately for a compliance interview. Not HR, not chat. Compliance. That word changes the air. I went into the interview room with a folder of printed screenshots because my anxiety will never let me rely on a phone battery. A woman from compliance asked me to walk through the timeline. I did. Calmly. I stuck to dates and facts. I showed them the audit logs, the draft email photo, the decoy file with the hidden note that proved someone had open speaker notes. I didn't mention childhood dynamics, jealousy, family stuff, because compliance doesn't care. They care about access, intent, policy violations. When they asked if Samir had permission to access my files, I said, no. When they asked if I had ever shared my credentials, I said, no. When they asked why he would do it, I said, I can't speak to his motivation, but the timing aligns with my promotion presentation. Then I sat back down at my desk and waited. The next day, Samir didn't come in. Instead, my mom called me at 9:03 a.m., which told me he'd already told them everything. Her voice was shaky and furious. What did you do? She demanded. No hello. No question about my well-being. Just accusation. I stood up and walked into a quiet stairwell because I could not have this conversation at my desk. Mom, I said, Samir tried to sabotage my promotion. My mom made a noise like she was in pain. He said you're trying to ruin him. He said you're jealous. I laughed, bitter. Jealous of what? He said you set him up, she said, voice rising. He said you left things open so you could blame him. My hand tightened around my phone. That's not true, I said. I have logs. Compliance has logs. He accessed my files multiple times. He drafted an email about my readiness from my computer. My mom's voice went small and pleading. But he's your brother. I closed my eyes. And I'm your daughter, I said. Why are you not asking why he did it? There was a pause. Then my mom said the thing I expected. You could have handled it privately. Privately. Quietly. So he could do it again with better tactics. No, I said. This is a workplace. Actions have consequences. My dad got on the phone next, voice low and controlled. You embarrassed the family, he said. I felt my throat tighten. He embarrassed himself, I said. He tried to undermine me. My dad sighed like I was being difficult. You know how people talk. That sentence, people talk, told me everything about the hierarchy in my family. Image over integrity. Always. Let them talk, I said. My dad's voice hardened. If Samir loses his job, that's on you. I stared at the concrete stairwell wall. The paint chipped near the railing, and I felt something settle. If Samir loses his job, I said, it will be because he broke policy, not because I refused to lie. My dad hung up. 2 days later, Samir came back to the office with a forced smile and eyes that looked slightly wild. He avoided my area entirely. I heard through the grapevine that he'd been placed on administrative leave, pending investigation. People whispered like it was gossip, like it was a show. That's the part one didn't anticipate, how public consequences feel even when you didn't seek an audience. Marianne called me into her office on Friday afternoon. The blinds were half closed and her desk was unusually tidy, which made my stomach flip. She gestured for me to sit. Compliance concluded their initial review, she said. I held my breath. They found that Samir accessed restricted materials unrelated to his role, she continued. They found he attempted to submit concerns about you through unofficial channels using your device. They're continuing to investigate whether he interfered with scheduling systems. Marian paused, eyes steady. He's been issued a final warning and removed from any systems that give him access to shared scheduling tools. He's being transferred to a different site. My heart was pounding. So, he's not fired. Marianne's mouth tightened. No. HR determined there wasn't enough to terminate immediately without further risk of wrongful dismissal claims. But this is on record. If he so much as breathes wrong, he's done. She leaned forward slightly. And Layla, this does not reflect on you. If anything, you handled it exactly as I'd hope a leader would. Leader. The word hit me in a way I didn't expect, like warmth and grief at the same time. Then she slid another paper across her desk. We've made a decision about the lead role, she said. My fingers went numb as I picked it up. It was an offer letter. I didn't cry in her office, but my eyes burned. I signed it with a pen that felt too light in my hand. Marian stood up and shook my hand. Congratulations, she said. You earned it. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise. When I walked out, the office looked the same. The fluorescent lights were still too bright. Someone was still arguing about a delayed shipment. But I felt different. Not triumphant. Just taller, somehow. Like my spine finally understood it was allowed to exist. That weekend, Samir showed up at my apartment. No warning. Just a knock that turned into pounding. Noah opened the door a crack, and Samir shoved it wider with his shoulder, like he owned the hallway. His face was flushed, jaw tight. So you got it, he spat, eyes flicking to me. I didn't stand. I stayed on the couch, hands folded, voice calm. Yes, I said. I did. He laughed sharp. Congrats. You destroyed me for it. Noah stepped forward. You need to leave, he said. Samir pointed at me like I was on trial. You think you're righteous, he snapped. You think you're better than me. I stared at him. I think you crossed a line, I said. And you're still blaming me for the consequences. His eyes glittered with anger. You could have just talked to me. I did, I said. In the conference room. You lied. He took a step toward me, and for a second my body tensed, old fear flaring. Noah moved between us. Samir stopped, breathing hard, then threw his hands up like a martyr.
Fine, he said.
Enjoy your promotion. Then he looked at Noah and sneered. Hope she doesn't cry when it gets hard. And he left. When the door shut, I sat there shaking. Not because I regretted what I did. Because part of me mourned the fact that my brother could look at my success and see only his humiliation. That's the update. Now back to the story to finish it. The first month as lead was brutal. Not because I wasn't capable, but because my nervous system was exhausted. Every time an email came in late at night, my body braced like it was Samir again. Every time someone questioned me in a meeting, I heard my family's old chorus. Too emotional, too sensitive, not ready. Therapy helped. Noah helped. My own stubbornness helped most. Samir kept his distance at work after the transfer. We saw each other once in the cafeteria. He walked in, saw me, and turned right back out. It stung in a childish way I didn't want to admit. I didn't want him to like me, but I also didn't want to be erased. At home, my parents went cold for a while. My mom would call and talk about weather and groceries like nothing happened, avoiding the subject like it was a bruise. My dad didn't call at all. Then on my birthday, he sent a text. Happy birthday. Hope work is going well.
No apology. No acknowledgement.
Just a tiny bridge thrown across a canyon, as if I should be grateful he bothered. A few weeks later, my mom asked if we could all have dinner as a family. I knew what that meant. A forced reset where everyone pretends the explosion didn't happen and the person who was hurt is expected to smile for the photo. Old me would have gone and swallowed it. New me asked one question. Is Samir going to apologize? Silence on the line. Then my mom said, carefully, he's very upset. I almost laughed. So am I said. But I'm not the one who sabotaged someone. My mom sighed. Layla, you're making it impossible. I said, no. He did. We didn't have the dinner. And that was the real ending, honestly, not the promotion letter, not the compliance investigation. The real ending was me realizing I could refuse the family script. I could stop being the one who absorbs harm to keep the room calm. I could be a daughter and still be a person. I could be a sister and still refuse to be sacrificed. I got the promotion. Samir got consequences. My family got uncomfortable. And for once, I didn't rush in to fix their discomfort like it was my job. Samir is the kind of guy who wants the benefits of being the big brother without the responsibility of actually wanting good things for his sister. He doesn't see me as a whole person. He sees me as a reflection that's supposed to stay slightly dimmer than him. And the way he tried to sabotage me wasn't even bold. It was cowardly. He didn't walk into Marianne's office and compete fairly. He tried to poison the well quietly, to plant doubt while keeping his hands clean. That protecting you line? That's not protection. That's control dressed up in concern so the victim feels guilty for resisting. My parents deserve their own section of criticism because they raised him in a house where the loudest person gets defended and the hurt person gets told to handle it privately. My mom's entire personality is avoiding conflict, which sounds kind until you realize it means she'll happily pressure the wrong person just to keep the peace. My dad cares about how people talk more than what's true, and that's how you end up with sons who think reputation matters more than integrity. Marianne was the unexpected hero here, not because she saved me, but because she didn't let workplace reality get swallowed by family dynamics. She treated sabotage like sabotage, not like siblings being siblings, and that matters. Noah also deserves credit for being the steady wall between me and the chaos. He didn't tell me to calm down. He didn't ask me to be nicer. He backed my boundaries even when it got ugly at my front door. And me? I'm proud of me, but not in a glossy, motivational poster way. I'm proud in a tired, human way. I documented. I reported. I didn't scream first, I didn't lie, I didn't shrink to keep everyone comfortable. If Samir wants someone to blame for his situation, he can look at the audit logs with his own username on them. I didn't ruin him. I stopped rescuing him from consequences. There's a difference, and he hates it because consequences don't laugh at his jokes.